And we're going to turn now to the latest installment of what we call our Common Ground series, where Democratic Congressman Jimmy Panetta of California and Republican Congressman Tracey Mann of Kansas have teamed up to co-captain the congressional football team. Now, while they didn't win their annual game against the U.S. Capitol Police this week, the congressman told Kristen Welker, our, of course, regular host of this program, that part of being on the team is about much more than the game itself, and it has helped Republicans and Democrats come together, have some fun, tackle, no pun intended, yeah, it is intended, some of the congressional issues that can be most troubling. Let's look at her conversation. So you're both sore after this game?
A little bit in the rearview mirror, still sore, still some bumps and bruises, but slowly recovering.
Well, look, Congressman Panetta, this game is about so much more than football. This is about raising money. And it's about bipartisanship. So y'all didn't win the game, but talk about the importance and why you wanted to participate in this.
Yeah, that's an understatement about not winning. But the fact is that there are other goals when it comes to the congressional football game in which Democrats and Republicans, with the aid of a few former football players, play against the Capitol Police. Obviously, it is about the game, but it's also about the charities that we support. I think we raised over $350,000 for 4 charities, especially the Capitol Police Memorial Fund, Boys and Girls Club here in Washington, D.C., A Advantage for Kids, and our military kids, all impactful charities that are taking place and affecting people's lives right here. So, yes, it's about the game. Yes, it's about the charities. And it is about bipartisanship, an opportunity for us to come together, which unfortunately now is few and far between.
Well, and pick up on that point, Congressman Mann, to what extent does this foster bipartisanship? You are co-captains of this great team, and you and I were talking about the practices are almost as important as the game itself.
And it's fun to get to co-captain with my good friend, Jimmy Panetta. You know, I'm from Kansas, he's from California. It cannot be more different in some ways. But the point is you get to know people. And, you know, when you're sweating, you know, in the mornings at practice and the sun's coming up, doesn't matter what party you're from, there's commonalities that you reach. You know, you get to know people in a way you wouldn't otherwise. Part of the problem in Washington, D.C. is that people just don't know each other. And there are ways to do that. And things like this bipartisan football game, one, it's a lot of fun, but 2, it's a way to get to know people in ways you wouldn't otherwise.
Well, it's just fantastic. And kudos for raising all of that money for really important causes. On the issue of bipartisanship, I want to talk about some of the pressing issues facing Congress right now. Let's start with the partial government shutdown. DHS shut down currently, Democrats demanding some key changes to ICE tactics. The White House has actually put forward some proposals. I want to read it so our viewers have a sense. The administration releasing a letter detailing the changes it's willing to make, including body-worn cameras for officers, limiting immigration enforcement at sensitive locations like hospitals and schools, and allowing oversight of detention facilities. Congressman Mann, would you vote for these reforms to DHS? Is this something you could get behind?
I'd have to look at them, but certainly the White House is putting that forward. Those seem reasonable at first glance. It's always about the details. But at the end of the day, you know, we've got to come together as a country. What you just outlined seems pretty reasonable to me, but we'll take a look at it.
Well, Congressman Panetta, the list that I just read only addresses some of what Democrats are demanding. One of the big things is they're demanding that the masks be abandoned, that they no longer can wear masks, for example. Do the reforms go far enough for you? Would you be able to get behind what I just read?
Oh, yes. And look, as a former prosecutor, I dealt with law enforcement quite a bit for close to 20 years. And if you're going to call yourself law enforcement, then you dang well better act like law enforcement. And unfortunately, what we've seen, especially in Minneapolis and through other parts of the country, you have a rogue agency that's acting with impunity that really is not anything like the law enforcement I dealt with at the local levels. And so I would hope that there are these certain basic, commonsensical law enforcement procedures and protocols that could get put in place before we do anything. You mentioned 3 of them. Obviously, our leader, Jeffries, has come out with a list of them that include other things like judicial warrants before you go into a house, making sure there's not a paramilitary force that's out there acting with impunity, and making sure that there are actually body cameras that are worn, stored, and has proper protocols when it comes to that. So, like I said, it comes down to if you're going to call yourself yourself law enforcement, you got to act like law enforcement. And these types of procedures have to be put in place before we even consider determining whether or not we're going to vote for DHS funding.
All right, let's talk about the SAVE Act now. Again, just for some context, it would require proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections, as well as a photo ID when voting. Nationwide, Congressman Mann, records show that just 4% of voters, 0.04% of voter verification cases are returned as non-citizens. Why is this bill necessary?
Yeah, well, 4% matters a lot when you look at the elections around 0.04. But every vote, you know, we have some elections that come down to 20, 30, 40 votes. I mean, every vote matters. Certainly, Kansas has had these reforms for a long time, you know, proof of citizenship to be able to vote, and then photo ID, you know, and actually the day of. Very reasonable to me, common sense, widely popular amongst Republicans and Democrats. I proudly supported the Save American Act and want to see it signed into law.
And Congressman Panetta, what do you make of those arguments? You do have a majority of people who do support some type of reforms to voter ID.
Yeah, and look, I'm all for showing some form of identification in the voter registration or voting process. The SAVE Act, unfortunately, is about putting up barriers is what's happening here, and it's making it more difficult and tougher, and actually going after something that really isn't an issue when it comes to undocumented people voting. There has yet to be any sort of solid evidence that's been presented to make this such a big deal. Once again, I'm for voter identification, but it also comes down to when they show it, how they show it, what form of identification is necessary, and it was just so burdensome in the SAVE Act. That's why I voted against it.
Congressman Mann, the president is proposing adding some amendments to the SAVE Act, which you're likely aware of. It would include banning biological men from women's sports and transition surgeries for transgender minors. Do you think those amendments make it even more difficult to pass the SAVE Act, which is already an uphill battle?
Yeah, we'll see. The Save America Act has passed the House twice now. I proudly supported it. It's over in the Senate right now. There'll be various amendments that'll come up on the Senate side probably, and we'll just have to take a look at what those actually end up being.
Do you think those amendments, though, do make it more complicated to get it through?
Potentially, but a lot of those amendments, there's quite a bit of bipartisan support, some common sense things as well. So it just all depends on what the amendment is and how it's approached.
All right. I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about actual ways that you think Congress can do a better job of coming together. Public trust in Congress right now is near historic lows. Only 16% of Americans saying they approve of the way Congress is handling its job. That's according to recent polling. Congressman Panetta, why do you think this number is so low, and what do you think you and your fellow lawmakers can do about it?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, when you turn on the TV today, excluding your show, you see
appreciate that.
You see the partisans, yelling and screaming at each other, and like I said earlier, good governing is just not sexy these days. But to me, good governing is good politics, and that's why I'm here, to get stuff done and to gravitate towards people like Tracey. As you've heard, we're going to have our differences, but we're not here just to point out our differences. We're here to at least find our similarities. And what I have to tell you and your viewers is that for the most part, there are people on both sides of the aisle that actually come here to work together to get stuff done. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are here just to yell and scream, to blow things up, and to not find solutions. However, people need to understand that for the most part, there are Democrats and Republicans willing to sit down, willing to have those conversations, willing to get to know one another, to develop that trust upon which you can actually come up with meaningful, impactful legislation.
Congressman Mann, final point to you. What would you tell your fellow lawmakers about finding common ground?
Sure. Well, it starts with getting to know each other, right, and really outlining where are the ways that we can agree and come together. We have to remember that Congress is a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator of where the country's at. The country's very divided. So as a result, of course, the Congress is going to be divided as well. We've got to keep talking about the areas we have a lot of common ground. And those would be things like, I look at these housing bills that are coming up. There's a lot of broad bipartisan support to lower the cost of housing. I'm on the House Ag Committee. Broad bipartisan support out of a farm bill that we passed out of committee 2 weeks ago. There's going to be a big surface transportation reauthorization. Roads, bridges aren't Republican or Democrat. They need to be done for the good of the citizens, and those are things we ought to be focusing on.
Beyond just being co-chairs and co-captains of the football team, we're co-chairs of the Future Farmers of America caucus. And so, he has different agriculture than with his row crops than my specialty crops. But there are certain areas, and the people who work in agriculture are where we want to find our similarities and solutions for them, knowing how hard they work.
And we both strongly support young people looking at agriculture as a career field, and that's an easy thing to get behind.
Well, and undoubtedly, all of those football practices helped you to find some of that common ground as well on that critical issue. Thank you for raising that. Really appreciate it, Congressman Mann and Congressman Panetta. Great conversation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.